Joining us in studio this morning for a conversation in relation to not just the 2025 report, but activities as well in relation to the country's upstream petroleum sector. Mr. Jamina, I appreciate you for joining us in studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning and very good morning to your cherished listeners.
How is PIAC and the very important work that you do at PIAC as well, in terms of monitoring and ensuring that revenue and all other things go on well?
Once again, good morning to your good self and good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee is doing well. It's been focused on its mandate as provided for in Section 52 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which mandate requires the committee to, one, monitor and evaluate compliance with provisions of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, create a platform for citizens to debate the spending, whether the spending aligns with development priorities, and third, conduct independent assessments of the management, use, and investments of the funds. And this is what the committee has been busily doing. The committee is required by the Act in Section 56 to publish 2 reports every year, a semi-annual report covering January to June to be published by the 15th of September, and then an annual report covering the entire year to be published by the 15th of March in the ensuing year. I think it's been about a month since the committee published the 2025 annual report, and keeping with its mandate, the committee has been out informing the public of activities in the upstream petroleum sector as contained in the report, and empowering citizens to demand accountability from duty bearers as provided for in the Act.
And it's important you mention the 2025 report as well, because it's drawn eyebrows, it's rather raised eyebrows following the report, which detailed that, look, there's been a consistent decline of some sort in terms of output, which has had a direct bearing as well on revenue. Just give us a brief overview of what it is that we've seen from that 2025 report, which has now become a subject area of concern before we even delve into the sector proper and where we should be going and the critical and important questions that need asking.
All right. Thank you. So we know that crude oil is produced in Ghana. The production started on the 15th of December 2010 on the one field that was then in production, the Jubilee field. In 2016, the second producing field was added, the Tweniboa Enyira and Tome field. And then in 2017, the third producing field was added, the Sankofa Jinyame field. So these 3 fields have been producing since 2010. When I say we, I mean Ghana has been producing both crude oil and raw gas. And the main of the 3 fields that's doing best in terms of the production of crude oil is the Jubilee field. And then the best in terms of the production of raw gas is the Sankofa Jinyame field. In 2019, the country recorded its highest production of 71.4 million barrels from the 3 fields. And since then, we have been on a decline in terms of production. From 71 million barrels, we declined to 66 million barrels in 2020. And the explanation we all had was that 2020 was a special year, COVID year, which affected all economic activities. So the expectation was that we're going to rise again from 66. From 66 we came to 55, and then to 51, to 48, and then to 37, and then what we recorded in 2025, which is 37.3 million barrels. And this is of concern because the revenues from the upstream petroleum activities constitute a very important part of government source of revenue for development in the country. And when you see production going down, then there is need to pay attention. The reason is that revenue is a function of two factors, production and price. And of the two factors, the one you have control over is production. Price depends on world
market prices,
market
prevailing
geopolitics,
circumstances.
exactly, as we have currently. The country has very little control over that. So what you really have control over is production. And when the one you have control over seems to be slipping through your fingers, then there's need to sit up again, go back and look at the factors contributing to the decline and work to address these underlying factors to bring back the production again. And it's of concern because when you break down the total figure of 37.3 million barrels into the three producing fields, you're looking, it's not average, it's not even. Jubilee field started from 2010, as I said. So if you give it an average life of about 30 years, which is the average life of
a well,
not a well, but a producing field.
Okay.
Then if you started from 2010 and you are looking at 2025, that's about 15 years. Then relatively you are in the more like you are in the middle of the life of Jubilee. But even the performance of Jubilee as we have it now is a result of two major investments that have been made. The Greater Jubilee development that was done, and then recently, that's about 3 years ago or so, Jubilee Southeast came on stream, which two factors have contributed to the improvement in the performance.
Otherwise, it could have declined
been worse
even
than now. Then, when you look at the 10 field, the 10 field came on stream in 2016, and we started out with a production of about 40,000 barrels per day. The expectation was that we were going to go up and do better and do better. But currently we are around 16,000 barrels per day, which is a significant drop from where we started off. And that 10 field is at the core of the decline in production. The geology of the field has made it very difficult for production to grow, and we see the production on that field in particular declining, which is what contributes the total decline. Then when you come to the Sankofa Ginyame field, it's primarily a gas field, so it gives you more gas than crude oil. So what you would expect from there is to take advantage of the benefits of raw gas, as to be processed into the various derivatives and other things, so that you get there. Then the crude oil that comes with the production of the raw gas. So this breakdown gives a kind of explanation to the decline we are currently experiencing. And PIAC, based on this finding, makes a recommendation that government, together with its partner, the Petroleum Commission, Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, should devise strategies, workable strategies over time to address the decline and then bring the numbers back up again for the benefit of the citizens.
I've heard you explain why we've seen the decline, but I want to contextualize this in the minds of persons who are listening to us in terms of the decline that we've seen and why this conversation is important. And so I have before me as well the report and the details from it. Now, comparing 2024 and 2025 in terms of oil receipts, and the amount of money which should have been coming in, we've seen a decline of about 770 million US dollars. That is the 43% plus, right? 43.27% in terms of a decline in possible revenue which could have been available to the government to undertake developmental projects and what have you. There are those who make the argument that this has been the instance of decisions and actions, a lack of investment and what have you within the sector. That is not within your domain. But for persons who are listening, one of the reasons why we're having this all-important conversation is money is worth $770 million, which could have come in for national development. We've lost because production has declined. That's why this conversation is important and why Mr. Dramina is in studio with us. And so I've heard you on the recommendations. In terms of the actions we've seen, and I'll go a bit more specific because we heard the minister make certain pronouncements during the government accountability series because a direct question was asked as to the upstream petroleum sector. It's not the first time that a comment like that has been made. In terms of the direction in which, if I can say, was announced, does that begin to engender a bit of confidence that we can see this continuous decline turning around?
Well, thank you. So once again, as you made reference to revenues, for the average Ghanaian, if we were producing so many barrels of crude oil and the production declined, so what has that to do with me? I mean, it is not my bread and butter.
Absolutely.
It's not my cocoa and kose matter. But you relate it to the Ghanaian, which makes the conversation of interest to the average Ghanaian. So for the year 2024, the nation made approximately $4 billion US dollars from upstream petroleum operations. And this amount is what declined to 770 million US dollars in 2025. So that is about half. And the reasons are partly production and then partly price. As I said in my earlier explanation, revenue is a function of production and price. The price we had in 2024 was better than the price we had in 2025, which is what contributed to a decline in the revenue that came to government. And by the Petroleum Revenue Management, and I'm sure that we'll go into the details later, the revenues are to be used for specific development purposes. Yeah. And the government as currently has chosen to use the petroleum revenue to support the infrastructure development. More specifically in government language, the Big Push program is to be funded partly from petroleum revenue. And more specifically, the government plans to use the petroleum revenue to fund the Accra-Kumasi Expressway. So if 1.4 billion, as realized in 2024, was going to be available to government for 2025, can you imagine how much of the total cost of the project would have been covered by petroleum revenue alone? Then you come to the other revenue sources that government is seeking to complement the project with. So, as you said, it really diminishes the funding for the project, and it becomes a matter of concern to every Ghanaian who is looking forward to seeing the petroleum revenues put to development use for projects to benefit them. Relating to steps that government has taken since it came into office, and it's particularly because the report covers January to December 2025. Yes, with regards to this industry, turnaround time is a bit slow. When you take actions today or you don't take actions today, you may not feel the impact immediately. The outcomes may not show up immediately. But then in the next 3 to 5 years, 2 years, 4 years, you will begin to see the actions and inactions in previous years that will begin to play out now. We make reference to the arbitration matter that ENI took Ghana to, relating to the unitization of the Springfield issue, and you see that Ghana lost, and it is not just about that case. It is about the signal it sends to investors who are considering to come and invest in our shores. And if such signals are sent out, then it discourages investors. On one hand, government is making efforts, spending taxpayers' money to go for international conferences, what we call road shows, just to market the potential of the country to investors. But then on another hand, government is taking actions or inactions that seem to negate the very things that government is doing to promote investment. So it is good that the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition has taken some very good initial steps. It's brought the parties to a discussion table. ENI, that whose chief executive was almost relocating to La Côte d'Ivoire, has now come back. They are taking some steps regarding the Sankofa Nyame fields to invest further. The Jubilee field is also, the government met the partners, and there seems to be some energy being injected into it. Some of the issues that the minister raised in his recent address to the press will be covered in the 2026 semi-annual report.
Right.
But at least as far as the 2025 annual report is concerned, PIAC has information relating to some positive initial steps that government and the ministry, for that matter, has taken, which are worth commending. And the expectation is that if we continue in that line, then we will see investors beginning to come. In fact, PIAC met the president in July 2025, and the president gave indications of some of the investors that government had engaged,
right,
that we are expecting in our shores once again to carry out exploratory activities. Hopefully these will lead to a find, and the field will be developed and brought on stream to add to the production number. So for now, and as far as the 2025 PIAC annual report is concerned, yes, government has taken some positive steps. We encourage government to continue in the same line, and we want to see more of these activities so that there will be more investments in our basins, because we are already being hounded by the energy transition drive, and investment is gradually being diverted from hydrocarbons to invest in green energy. And when you have investments being driven away from hydrocarbon fossil fuels, then there's need to bring as much investment now than later, because later then you would have to fall on your own resources. And to think that if government came to Ghanaians one day to tell them that we invested, let's say, $80 million in sinking a well, and when we sank the well, we did not make a find, so the entire $80 million has gone to waste. How will Ghanaians receive this news? I mean, we will describe it in all kinds of funny ways. The way we sometimes take, exactly. Well, we could have used this to build classrooms, to remove schools under trees, to do this, that. So governments the world over are reluctant to take the first step to commit so much funds. But then when the investor does it, then government incentivizes the investor, and then we can get more results for the benefit of our country.
Right, we're doing 14 minutes to the top of the hour. We're in studio with the Executive Secretary of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, Isaac Jamina Esquire. We're talking their 2025 report, petroleum revenue, and what it means for you and I who is listening, and more often than not feels very distant from what is described as technical conversations in relation to matters of the petroleum sector. Today, we want to help you appreciate and understand why this should be of concern to you. Mr. Jamina, we'll move to the amendments of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act because, like you mentioned, since our discovery of oil, we've been very direct or very specific in allocating portions of it to fund national budgets. Some will go, a part of it will go into Heritage Fund and some other funds, Heritage Fund for the future, and some other, I think the Stabilization Fund as well, for some other matters. A chunk of it has gone to supporting budgetary spending and all of that. We've seen different amendments from different governments per what it is that they want to do. This administration has sought to do same. They haven't done differently in amending the act and channeling all of it into infrastructure. And dare I say, the big push. Help us appreciate why on paper this may look good, but underneath, citizens may not be benefiting exactly from what the framers of this legislation from the onset intended.
All right, thank you. So Ghana had been producing gold and other minerals for decades, in fact, into a century. And when Ghana discovered oil, the conversation across the length and breadth of the country was that the revenues expected from upstream petroleum operations should not be treated the same way as gold revenue or mineral revenues, which discussions led to the the enactment of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. Now, the act, because petroleum is a finite resource, exhausted after some years, countries the world over have been very deliberate and targeted about how to use the revenues to develop other sectors of the economy, such that the country's dependence on revenues from the upstream petroleum operations reduces over time and then falls on the growth pillars that the revenues are used to develop. So this is the thinking, this is the philosophy behind the sections 18 and 21 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which determine how the revenue should be used.
Right.
So the Act provides that when the revenues come, they should all first go into the Petroleum Holding Fund. This is to help with tracking and accountability, so we can know that over this period, this is how much came in, this is how much has been used, and all that. Now, when the revenues go in, the Act provides that not more than 55% of one of the revenue streams, called the carried and participating interest, is to be paid to the National Oil Company, which is GNPC. Over the period, so every 3 years, government determines the percentage. Act says no more than 55, and that can be any number less than 55. So it used to be 40%. Parliament approved a 30%, and currently it's at 15%. So when GNPC is taken care of, the rest of the revenue now constitutes a new 100%, which the Act says not more than 70% of that is to be used to support the national budget. That is what is called the annual budget funding amount, which you referred to. Now, the 30% remaining, 70% of the 30, which is 21%, is to be saved in the Ghana Stabilization Fund. And then the remaining 30% of the 30%, which is actually 9%, is to be saved in the Ghana Heritage Fund, which is the Future Generations Fund. So since 2011, when the funds began coming in, the Act provided a list of 12 priority areas that the Minister for Finance is required to select not more than 4 from over a 3-year period for Parliament to approve. Then the petroleum revenue will be spent accordingly. So from 2011 to 2013, we had the government of the day select amortization of loans,
Right.
agric mechanization, road and other infrastructure, then capacity building. So those were the 4 priority areas that the government selected. The government repeated those priority areas from the period 2014 to 2016. We are talking about 3 year. So it is not necessarily new government select new priority areas.
Right.
The act sought to depart from the 4-year political cycle so that the usage of the revenues will not be political, will transcend our political system.
Right.
So for the year 2017 to 2019, the government of the day selected agric, health, education, and then road, rail, and other critical infrastructure as the 4 areas for the utilization. Then for the period 2020 to 2022, the government merged health and education and then introduced industrialization. So we had industrialization, education and health, road, rail, and other infrastructure, and then the 4th. Now, for the period 2023 to 2025, government, so 23, 24, the expenditures were the same. So when the new government came, it decided to use the revenue only for infrastructure. And so it didn't have to amend the act, but it did. It amended the act to take away all the other priority areas. So in the act currently,
As we
the
speak.
only priority area in the act is infrastructure. So it means petroleum revenue cannot be used for any other purpose apart from infrastructure development. That is the current position of the law. And under that, government has chosen to use the revenue to support the big push, and more specifically, road infrastructure. And the project we are talking about here is the expressway from Accra to Kumasi. Now, for PIAC, this is positive. This is positive because we will now not spread the revenue over so many
For it to be
projects.
so thin.
Exactly, which is one of the issues PIAC had identified since 2011 through to 2024. We had raised this in our reports. So the current regime, the current arrangement deals with that issue. And the expectation is that we will use the revenues from start to finish and be able to say that this project received petroleum revenue funding from its start to its completion. PIAC would have loved for it to be exclusive so that there will be no other funding. So that when we say we use the project, for example, to buy a bottle of water, then it is entirely petroleum revenue. Then we'll brand it and say this project is petroleum revenue funded, so that when citizens see it, they are reminded
Tangibles.
that exactly this is the benefit we received from petroleum revenue. But government is not doing that. PIAC met the Minister for Finance, and he said that he would rather use petroleum revenue as part of the funding for the expressway, using mineral revenue and other government sources. Well, you can't get everything, so PIAC will stop at that. But one aspect of the amendment that PIAC raised concern with was, one, the lack of consultation. PIAC, central as it is in its mandate relating to petroleum revenue funding, was not consulted. And PIAC thought that subsequent opportunities to amend the act should do better than what happened in 2025. We can move on. But one critical thing is that previously, the act required the spending of the revenues to be aligned with a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament. That piece, that phrase in the provision has now been amended out. So now there is no requirement for the spending to be aligned with a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament. PIAC thinks that this could have been better done, so that we go beyond the political cycle and have the spending aligned with long-term vision and not medium-term. So that even though it's long-term, you'll be implementing it over medium. But then the medium should have a long-term focus, should have a long-term perspective. And it is pathetic to see that since 2011, when this act was enacted, the country does not have a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament to guide the utilization of petroleum revenue. And PIAC recommends that the country should, as a matter of urgency and as a matter of importance, develop a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament to guide not only petroleum revenue but all other resources, so that our development is targeted at something. Ghana will be 70 in 2057, right?
Yes, 2020. I think that's next year. Next year we're
Yes,
70. Next year.
Exactly. Well, how beautiful it would have been for us as a nation to look back 70 years, or we have used petroleum revenue, which is to do, we can point these things out, or we set out to do A, B, C, D over this period, and this is how far we have gone implementing it. Let's say development, we have reached 30% of this, 30% of that, 50. It becomes easier to track development, and you have the future in focus. So, I mean, the amendment for PIAC is positive as far as it relates to dealing with the thin spread and spending it over small projects that can't easily be tracked and all that. PIAC commends government for that. But then we should look
the long-term national
development plan should be looked at, and then the next window of amendment of the act should have more broad-based stakeholder consultation to have inputs. And it is not just for the aesthetic of consultation. There was already an amendment process in place which included stakeholders.
Right.
And because we didn't use that, we just deprived ourselves of the benefit we could have had from
the inputs that we could have made.
Exactly.
Could have made
you've really helped me drive home the point.
Right. So I hear you on that aspect, and it's important you make that you put that point across very well as well, in terms of how we've run our petroleum revenue very thin, and next year, unfortunately, when we're 70, we will not have a project fixed where we say petroleum revenue has funded it all. I know for you at PIAC, you do a lot of monitoring.
Yes.
As well of a number of these projects. Help us appreciate the levels in terms of abandonment that we're seeing as we speak now, because now we know what this government's agenda is. It's big push infrastructure, and yet there are other projects kick-started with petroleum funding which now will be left to hang.
Thank you. So yes, the committee monitors petroleum revenue projects, and I think just about 2 weeks ago I was in the team that went to the Savannah region to monitor some projects. There was another team in the Bunu East region to monitor some projects. In next 3 weeks we'll be out again on the field to monitor projects in the Volta region, the Uti region, and then part of the Afram Plains. So the committee is on there. But coming back to the point you're making, yes, PIAC is all in support of the infrastructure development that government is using petroleum revenue to do. And we look forward to monitoring these projects. The Accra-Kumasi Expressway, we look forward to receiving the necessary information from government to be able to carry out the physical monitoring. But coming to the point, the question you asked, across you see too many projects, and one critical project national that has received petroleum revenue funding is the Atuabo gas processing plant. We took a loan from the Chinese government to build it, and then the priority area called amortization of loans received about 850 million Ghana cedis of petroleum revenue, which went to repay the loan. So we can say that the Atuabo gas processing plant,
a chunk of
is
petroleum revenue.
Exactly, it's a classic example of a project that has received petroleum revenue funding. When you look at the Kotoka, previously called Kotoka, now currently Accra International Airport, yes, The project costs about $350 million. Petroleum revenue is about $30 million, $35 million. And so we can say that petroleum revenue is about 10%. And in the 2025 report that we are discussing, PIAC reports that of the 30 million invested, the country has made returns of about $17.5 million.
More than
30
half.
million. Yes, more than half. And it's for the period 2016-17 to 2025. So can you imagine if we had invested about $100 million of petroleum revenue into the airport project? Can you see how many times over, I mean, the returns would have been? And these are very good projects that PIAC thinks petroleum revenue should be invested in. Commercial infrastructure that will bring returns, so that it is not just there for infrastructure's sake, but that it will pay for itself. The Minister of Finance has indicated to PIAC that the Accra Kumasi Express will be tolled. And so the expectation is that it will not just be a petroleum revenue funded project, but that the
revenue
tolls that
from
will be
the
accrued
tolls
will be the returns on the investment that will be made. This is brilliant, and the committee commends the minister for that. But as you said, there are other ABF or petroleum revenue funded projects that have been left uncontinued. One good example is the Agenda 111 projects, and PIAC speaks as a citizen-led body with no political
biases
leaning.
at all.
Exactly. So petroleum revenue up to 2.6 billion Ghana cedis was spent on the Agenda 111 project, and I was part of a team that inspected the one in Ningo Pram Pram. Other PIAC team members have inspected different ones. In fact, when we go to the field in 3 weeks, we'll inspect some. And these are projects that have gone very far. And the thinking and the recommendation in the PIAC Semi-Annual Report 2025 was that the harm has already been done, if it is actually a harm. Petroleum revenue has already been sunk. So let's complete it. Some of them have reached 80%, 90% rate of completion. If we require petroleum revenue, and since government has decided to invest in infrastructure, then let's use part of the infrastructure petroleum revenue to complete these, so that they will be of benefit to citizens. So to the extent that some of those projects will not be continued and completed, PIAC thinks that government may have to take another look. Beautifully and fortunately, it is still under infrastructure, so it is not out of place for government to allocate some petroleum revenue to complete some of those very big projects and make them complete for the benefit of citizens.
Would you at PIAC recommend additional legislation? I say additional advisedly, which will tie the hands of our governments to strictly complete projects started and left abandoned, considering the fact that your monitorings reveal a plethora of these. Agenda 111 aside, there are other projects which have not been completed. And the concern is, if we leave it to only the politicians, a future government from any other party will come with a completely different idea as to how petroleum revenue should be expended. And then we will have dotted projects across the country and none completed.
Beautiful. And this is at the base. This underpins the recommendation PIAC made relating to the long-term National Development Plan approved by Parliament. So this will transcend the political systems, so that development is more long-term than the short, medium term as it takes. Yes. So in order for another government not to come and say, this is not my priority, and let's trust and hope that the expressway will be completed by 2028,
which is the completion date that's been provided.
Yes. We may even have the same party in government, but then the president of the day may decide to have another priority. And if we do not complete this project, and another government comes and says, it is not my priority, I am using it for something else, then what do? We will have sunk so much into the projects already. So it is a reason PIAC recommends that not only Agenda 111, many others, even the regular Accra-Kumasi road, which is now so bad, has received petroleum revenue funding. I mean, from the period 2014 through to 2016,
some petroleum funding went
more
into
than 100 million Ghana cedis of petroleum revenue. Or ABF, it was invested in so many chips compound, road projects, classroom blocks, so many of them. And when, in fact, last 2 years, was it last 2 years? Yes, we inspected some chips compound in Brema Sikuma. We got lost because the structure abandoned is in a bush.
And that is petroleum funding.
Yes, petroleum
not
funding.
Completed.
Not completed. We had to weed our way to the project because it had been covered with weeds.
Has it been completed now, or it's still in
No,
the
it's been
state?
abandoned. I don't think we've gone back. We've not gone back. So, I mean, this is our predicament, and these are the reasons for which PIAC is seeking to get the support of citizens, that we demand accountability from duty bearers to use the revenues in a particular way so that the benefits will be long lasting. See United Arab Emirates. Now they've so developed their tourism sector using their petroleum revenue, so much so that now tourism brings more to the country than petroleum revenue does.
Which was the base upon which they built tourism.
So Ghana should also use its petroleum revenues to do something like that. If we are even using it to just develop agric, for example, I'm just citing an example, we could use that to build, big farms, and let's say that would be the base of industrialization, so that when we have grown enough to feed, then what remains will be used for industrialization. We export. It opens the country up, and not only agric, but any other areas. The government decides to remove schools under trees, so using that for education, for instance, it becomes something landmark, and we can make reference to it very easily. So these are the areas of utilization that PIAC draws attention to as it publishes these statutory reports.
Right. We'll be wrapping up pretty shortly, but there are 2 pointer areas I'll go back to some of the revenue we've accrued from our investments from the airport's infrastructure, for instance, and ask how more we can do that. But on abandoned projects, is there a way citizens can help? I ask this question in a published list of petroleum revenue funded projects from across the country for us as citizens to monitor and return to duty bearers and ask questions. Because you mentioned Sukuma, is it?
Yes, Brema Sikuma.
Brema Sikuma.
Yes.
I don't know the place, but I'm sure citizens there will know about it and will want to see that completed, because it will attend to the primary health care which this administration has launched, where they say all individuals can now have access to primary health care. At least you check your BP and all of that. If that facility is completed, they can get access to primary health care there.
Absolutely.
So is there a database from which we can go to find the project? And if I live at, say, I'm from Hokwe and I'm in Hokwe, I can find the project and begin to ask questions as to why this continues to be left unattended to.
Yes. So each of the reports of PIAC has in its appendixes details of all the projects, and the Ministry of Finance makes these the list available to PIAC, and you will see a link, and when you click on it, you will see the projects listed. And so you can go to our website www.piacghana.org, and we have all the reports there. 2025, 24, the semi-annual reports are all there, and we have all the projects. So maybe it could be something that 3FM could initiate, because the projects usually are not branded. Citizens do not know that this project is petroleum revenue funded. It is usually when we visit, and even assemblies, district assemblies and even regional coordinating council do not know that these projects are petroleum revenue funded. So when they go there, they will see the projects, and then they can begin looking for the projects, and then maybe get in touch with 3FM. Oh, in my district, I have found this project which is on the PIAC website as petroleum revenue funded, and it was not completed. It's this, that. Then, I mean,
because at this rate, a number of the projects could even get lost. And yes. Nobody will find them. If you had to weed your way to a health facility, I wonder which other ones persons have forgotten about and have been left abandoned, which will not be able to find. Back to what we've seen investment from petroleum funding do at the airport. How do we continue a replication of that? Through what means? On the new project with this government, the expressway, we're expecting tolling. Is there a specific platform through which investment should be channeled for such infrastructure projects so that we can see a return? So it has to be left to the finance ministry to as and when pick and choose.
Okay. So it is interesting to note that this investment we are talking about, the investment in the Accra
Kumasi Expressway.
No, the airport project,
right,
was made by the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund.
GIF.
Yes, GIF made that investment in 2016-17. This was when the investment was made. At that point, there was a provision in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act requiring a certain percentage of the petroleum revenue to be given to GIF for infrastructure development. The amendment that took place last year has taken out GIF. And PIAC makes a recommendation that based on the returns
we are seeing from the Accra International Airport,
GIF should be brought back and they should be allotted petroleum revenue so that they make commercial investments, specifically not like hospital investment, which is more like a social project, but commercial investments that will bring returns to the country. We can track. So we are using the airport project as a case to ask for a restoration of GIF to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, and then a certain percentage of the revenue be given to GIF to invest in commercial projects. I hear the government seeking to expand the airport. I think new sites are being built.
Exactly. A connection to they are seeking to create a connection terminal 2 and 3 and expand the airport.
This is a beautiful investment opportunity that if GIF had been giving petroleum revenue, they could have invested in it just as they did in the
Terminal 3.
Exactly. And then sooner than later, we'll begin reckoning the returns that investment would have brought us. So PIAC recommends in its 2025 semi-annual report and even in the 2025 annual report that the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund should be restored to the Act, and a certain percentage of petroleum revenue should be allocated to it to invest in commercial infrastructure that will bring returns to the country over a period of time.
Right. In wrapping up, based on what we've seen in the 2025 report and the conversations you at PIAC have had with the finance ministry, the president, in terms of our general outlook, is there hope? I ask this very strategically because of a 6-year decline, the need for fresh investment and all of that within the sector, because even all of these projects we're talking about, there has to be production, which will guarantee revenue to start off with. Then we can ask strict questions as to where revenue is going as well. Is there hope from the side of PIAC as a key independent monitoring organization that things could turn out for good? Possibly at the end of this year report, we could have stopped the decline, perhaps.
Yes, I will say yes. As I said earlier, some of the developments that we are seeing in 2026 will be featured in the 2026 semi-annual report of the committee. So the committee will report on these developments for the information of citizens. But based on the actions that government began taking as reported in the 2025 annual report, there are positive signals, there are positive signs that if government continues in the same trajectory, then we can begin seeing, first we would see a slowdown in the amount of decline. You may not begin seeing the numbers going up all of a sudden. Probably instead of seeing the decline at, let's say, 50,000 barrels or something, now it will reduce to, let's say, 20,000, then 10,000, and then you will begin seeing the numbers going up again. We will also expect that new fields will be added. In fact, there are some discoveries that are yet to be developed to be added. The Pecan field is one, and then the Springfield discovery. The Ministry of Energy was making efforts at government even buying the field from Springfield entirely for it to become government's field for it to be worked on. Then GMPC is also working on the Voltairean Basin, which is onshore, and the expectation is that the work being done will lead us to make a discovery on land. And usually the investment in on land operations is much less compared to the risk is lower and the investment is lower. So you should get, in fact, more Ghanaians going into it to boost production for the effect of the industry to be felt even the more in the economy, rather than the current situation where you have Tallow, which is a foreign company, ENI a foreign company, Cosmos a foreign company, Vitol so these companies make so much and then they take the returns from their investments out of Ghana.
Right. Mr. Jamina, I must say I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and for our listeners as well, I hope we've been able to paint a picture for them as to why they cannot sit aloof in terms of conversations in relation to oil. It's not a technical conversation that is far away from them. It directly feeds and connects to them as citizens of the Republic, and it is important that they take active interest in what happens to petroleum revenue as well. Any last words as we wrap up this morning?
Yes. So, I mean, your remarks would just have been my closing remarks. So petroleum revenue and petroleum, the resource belongs to the people of Ghana, and it is for their benefit they are exploited, developed, and produced, sold on the world market, and the revenues realized and utilized in Ghana. So they should take particular interest in it, and to the extent that PIAC is mandated by law to monitor its usage and its investment, PIAC is for the people of Ghana.
Right.
It is not necessarily a government agency in the sense. It is a citizen-led body that is for the people of Ghana, and so they should draw near. On our website, we have the various social media handles: Facebook, Instagram, X, and even our WhatsApp number on the website to enable citizens to reach out and ask any questions they may have. We are ready. We are there to serve the public. We will provide answers. And if they have any more questions, we are ready to provide the answers for them.
Absolutely. That's Isaac Jamina, Esquire. He is the Executive Secretary of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Jessica is in the studio, but she doesn't do a lot of talking, and so she's hiding somewhere. But we deeply appreciate providing moral support. Indeed, we deeply appreciate you joining us in the studio, and we look forward to having more of such conversations consistently, playing at the back of the minds of citizens as well as to why all of this is important. We all must play the monitoring role to ensure that we get enough from what God has blessed us with, so that we can see the tangibles. So, Mr. Jamina, one more time, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you to your cherished listeners for listening and taking particular interest in this conversation.
I appreciate When they drill the oil and resell it, there are specific into annual budget funding accounts.
92.7